For years, Jim Carrey has been at the center of quiet speculation and ongoing rumors. Recently, he addressed things in a way he hadn't before, and the reactions have been strong. What he said didn't follow what many expected, and it raises new questions about his past, his career, and the life he's been living away from the spotlight. In early 2026, Carrey appeared in Paris to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award, and the internet erupted with a bizarre new theory, that the man on stage wasn't him at all. Join us as we take a closer look at what was finally revealed. Early cracks. Jim Carrey was born on January 17, 1962 in Newmarket, Ontario. He was the youngest of 4 children in a home where money was always short. His father, Percy, had dreamed of being a musician but settled for a steady job as an accountant. Jim watched his father give up something important, a lesson that left a deep impression. Meanwhile, his mother Kathleen dealt with long-term health problems, spending much of her time in bed. For a young child, it meant growing up fast and learning to handle emotional pressure early. Jim found his escape in front of a mirror, spending hours making faces and copying people from TV. By age 10, he wrote a letter to Carol Burnett telling her he was already good at impressions. When she replied, he kept it as proof he was on the right path. At school, he turned lessons into shows, making classmates laugh but often getting sent out of class. His family's financial struggles were visible through his worn clothes, leading to teasing and bullying. Laughter became his tool to deal with embarrassment and uncertainty, but behind every joke was a child managing a life that already felt heavy. The survival years. Everything changed in 1975 when Percy lost his job at Titan Wheels. The family lost their only steady income. Bills piled up, and soon they lost their home, ending up in a Volkswagen camper van near Lake Ontario. Jim and his brother often slept in a tent, waking up with frost on their sleeping bags. Washing up meant gas station sinks, and food wasn't always guaranteed. Jim dropped out of school at 16 to work full-time, helping support his family while also caring for his ailing mother. It wasn't a choice, it was survival. Through it all, humor stopped being just fun, it became a way to deal with the stress and fear. What started as simple entertainment turned into a coping mechanism for pain and responsibility at a young age. Trauma that didn't leave. The hardest part wasn't just poverty. During those years, Percy reached a breaking point and attempted to take his own life, more than once. Jim was young, and seeing his father's struggle left a deep mark. From then on, he carried a fear that the same darkness could exist inside him. At the same time, his mother's medication use turned into dependency. Jim watched her behavior change, adding confusion to an already unstable home. He became withdrawn at times, later speaking about moments where he hurt himself just to feel something real. Instead of talking about it, he leaned harder into comedy. On the surface, he was the funny one, but underneath, humor became both an escape and a mask. That mix of laughter and hidden struggle shaped how he connected with others, and soon he would take that pain onto a stage for the first time. Failure and reinvention. At 15, Jim performed at Yuck Yuck's comedy club in a bright suit his mother picked out. The crowd didn't respond well, and the jokes fell flat. For most, that failure would have been enough to quit, but Jim kept trying. His early goal was Saturday Night Live, but he auditioned multiple times in the early 1980s and was turned down each time. With little money, he moved to Los Angeles, sleeping on couches in comedy clubs. His persistence paid off when he started performing at the Comedy Store. One night, Rodney Dangerfield noticed him and invited him on tour. That opportunity pushed Jim to grow. Up to that point, his act relied on impressions, but facing rejection forced him to create original characters using exaggerated expressions. It was the beginning of the style that would soon define his career. Fame arrives fast. Everything changed in 1990 when Jim joined In Living Color. His energy and willingness to go further than anyone else made him impossible to ignore. Fire Marshal Bill became an instant sensation, with Jim using his whole body to perform, twisting his face and throwing himself into scenes without holding back. But that intensity came with a cost. He pushed his body hard, often gaining or losing weight quickly. To keep up with long filming schedules, he started relying on Adderall and cocaine. His personal life also began to fall apart. He had married Melissa Womer before his rise to fame, but as his career exploded, their relationship changed. By 1995, the marriage ended in divorce. Melissa filed, saying he was no longer the same person. While audiences were laughing, his personal life was quietly breaking down. The explosion. 1994 was the year Jim Carrey became a global star. In 1 year, he released Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. For Ace Ventura, he was paid around $350,000, but after the film's success, his next deals jumped into the millions. His improvisational style gave his characters a unique, unpredictable energy that audiences loved. But while his career soared, his personal state worsened. Constant filming and public attention led to extreme exhaustion. He later spoke about hallucinations and feeling disconnected from reality. He also filed lawsuits against studios, claiming his image was being used without permission. The fame and money were real, but the cost was becoming clearer. Pressure of success. After 1994, studios depended on Jim to deliver hit after hit. For The Cable Guy, he earned $20 million, one of the highest salaries ever for a comedy actor. But with that came constant press tours and the expectation to be funny all the time, even off camera. Behind the scenes, tension grew. On the set of Batman Forever, his intense style clashed with co-star Tommy Lee Jones. Jim's commitment to physical comedy led to injuries, but he rarely stopped working. To manage anxiety, he began relying on Valium. The combination of constant work, public expectations, and personal strain was building up. Maintaining that level was becoming harder with each project. Crossing into darkness. As Jim moved into serious roles, his approach changed dramatically. During The Truman Show, he isolated himself between scenes to feel what it was like to live in a controlled world. That intensity went further on Man on the Moon, where he stayed in character as Andy Kaufman even when cameras weren't rolling. The line between his real identity and the role began to fade, creating confusion and frustration on set. His marriage to Lauren Holly broke down during this period, adding another layer of stress. He pushed himself physically as well, losing significant weight for roles and creating real physical reactions to match his characters. This way of working brought strong performances, but it made it harder to separate himself from the roles. The consequences of living this way were about to show. Legal battles. Outside of acting, problems grew. Jim filed lawsuits against studios over contracts and royalties, creating tension with the industry. During How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the physical toll was extreme. Hours in heavy makeup left him exhausted and frustrated. The most serious controversy came after the death of Catriona White in 2015. She had been in an on-and-off relationship with Jim. Her family filed a lawsuit accusing him of providing medication that contributed to her death. Jim denied the accusations. The case was dismissed in 2018, but the situation affected how people viewed him. On screen, he was still known for making people laugh. Off screen, he was dealing with legal battles, personal loss, and public criticism. Over time, he began stepping back, taking fewer roles and becoming more private. Jim breaks silence. In early 2026, Jim Carrey made a rare public appearance at the César Awards in Paris, where he received an honorary award. Dressed in a black tuxedo with long black hair, he delivered an emotional acceptance speech in French. But within hours, social media erupted with a bizarre conspiracy theory. Commenters insisted the man on stage wasn't the real Jim Carrey. Speculation grew that he was an impersonator, with some suggesting a silicone mask had been used. The rumors became so loud that Carrey's publicist was forced to issue a statement, flatly denying the clone theories. The bizarre episode highlighted how rare his public appearances had become. According to recent reports, Carrey now lives mostly off-grid in Maui, using a fake name for privacy and turning down most movie offers. When he did return for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, his explanation was blunt. At the premiere, he told reporters, I came back because I bought a lot of stuff and I need the money, frankly. The honesty revealed a pragmatic side to his retreat, and hinted that the pressures of his earlier career had financial consequences. Over the years, Carrey has also spoken openly about the depression that haunted him. In a 2017 interview, he described it as a low level of despair, but noted it had subsided. Now, when the rain comes, it rains, but it doesn't stay. More recently, he reflected on finding peace after years of turmoil. It is raining, but it can no longer sink me, he told reporters. His openness marked a clear shift. Instead of hiding struggles behind performances, he began talking about them directly. When asked about his legacy in 2022, he offered a simple response: "I just want to be remembered as a person with a pleasant scent." It was a far cry from the manic energy of Fire Marshal Bill, but perhaps a more honest reflection of the man who spent a lifetime making others laugh while quietly carrying his own pain. And with that honesty, his story takes on a very different meaning than what people first saw on screen. If you found this story interesting, like the video, share it with someone, and subscribe for more real-life stories like this.